Welcome to meet your candidates here at Hares and Hyenas, thanks to pridetv.com.au, starobserver.com.au and the Victorian Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby. In 60 seconds, otherwise you're going to hear a bell, each of these candidates are about to tell you about something important to the LGBTI community. So please welcome with me Fiona Patton for the Sex Party, Shannon Eales from Albert Park for the Liberal Party, Martin Foley, the member for Albert Park, and Kathleen Malters from Richmond for the Greens. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Pleasure. One of the things that's always challenging for organisations like myself and the whole sector in the LGBTI community is we're self-funded, we're self-fundraising, but trying to get to talk to government is so hard. We don't have big business lobbyists to be able to engage with that. So I guess what I want to hear today was what are you going to be able to do to help us engage better with government and give the information that you need, but also what sort of strength are you going to put into the capacity within our community? Fiona?
Look, I think certainly the Ministerial Advisory Committee on LGBTIQ health and wellbeing is an important role, and it should be sitting there. And I mean, it almost should be written into law that it exists. But because our community has much higher issues around mental health, homelessness, discrimination, things like HIV and Hep C, where we're affected more highly. I think there is a role for possibly a peak body, and I'm not sure how that body will look like, but I think it's really worth talking about. And Victoria, I mean, we've been pretty good at speaking out for ourselves, and I think Joy Radio is a wonderful example of that. Our sponsors are wonderful examples of that. But I do think that there is a role to really look at some of the specific issues that our community deals with on a whole range of areas of government.
Shannon, you've sort of come from a community sector, you probably understand what we're talking about.
I do, and although autism is obviously very different to this issue, it's similar in the sense that you have a population of people who are affected in many ways the same as the general population, but then have specific needs, and how do you adequately get those met, and how do you make sure that when people are making legislation, they're thinking about this group of people as well in the LGBTI community. So I think you're right. I think that involvement from outside of government is incredibly important. One of the reasons I'm coming into politics is because I would like to see more involvement from external specialists informing what happens in the formation of legislation. So we will be continuing the Ministerial Advisory Committee, which has been great to make sure that ministers who are making decisions are thinking about the LGBTI community in that. And it's the job of all ministers to be aware of this, and they're going to need support to do that. So the Ministerial Advisory Committee is incredibly important.
Martin, you're the first ever Minister for LGBTI equality. That's one.
Not yet. Shadow Minister.
Shadow Minister, sorry. What are you going to be able to do to strengthen this engagement?
Corey, like you said, Daniel Andrews established this portfolio of equality, LGBTI equality, to make sure that decisions for LGBTI communities were rode shotgun through all of our policy development. And should we form government, a cabinet minister, hopefully me, will be sitting at the table making sure that everything that goes through cabinet is put through the prism of where does this affect LGBTI rights. In support of that, Labor, if it is elected, will establish a whole of government LGBTI advisory council within the Department of Premier and Cabinet, advising the whole of government around all of the issues that affect LGBTI Victorians, because the LGBTI community is the last bastion of institutionalised discrimination that is yet to be challenged by the arms of the state government. In addition to that, having established under the Bracks and Brumby governments the Health and the Justice Ministerial Advisory Committees, we will make sure that they are both resurrected, particularly in the justice rights framework, which has been sadly neglected.
Kathleen, Greens were the first party to ever have a sexuality spokesperson, as I understand it. What are you going to be able to do for engagement?
I think we need four things. So firstly, we need a party with really consistent policies that it's stood by for a long time, and the Greens have stood up when it's been difficult against religious organisations in the Parliament unwaveringly, so we continue that. Funding's incredibly important. Again, I've also worked in the community sector, and the decision about what this community needs to be represented isn't easy to decide, and organisations need the funding to have those conversations about, do we need a commissioner, is it ministerial advisory committee, etc. Is it all of those things? So I think funding for community organisations is key, and we're committed to doing it. We need the right mechanisms then. The ministerial advisory committees, I think, are very important. The issue we need is to make things across the whole of government, so you don't have people being told, for example, well, that doesn't fit with health, and having nowhere to live. And the last thing I think we need is political leadership, and we've seen that from Sue Pennicue. It's been unwavering, and I know from being on council where I was able to get one of the first 2 relationship registers in the state, funding for same-sex attracted youth, that if you care about it and you're willing to fight for stuff, you can get to it. So we'll bring all those things.
Okay. So you've all talked about a Ministerial Advisory Committee, but a Ministerial Advisory Committee reports into Cabinet, and so if there's a change of government, their work is out the door and we start again. Why not a Commissioner? Why not something a little bit more independent that can speak truth to power?
I think you can see that with the discrimination commissioner can include that. But whether you need something that is actually sitting outside, so whether it's more of a non-government organisation, I think is the interesting question. The other thing is we need more of our community actually in Parliament. So we need to give our community the confidence to be able to actually stand for office.
Martin?
Commissioners have a dead set important role, particularly through a seriously resourced Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission. The other part of that is making sure that the community organisations also offer leadership, and that's a particular challenge. If the community is going to call on government for leadership, government has to equally, I think, call on the community to get its act into gear and show some leadership back to government.
Okay, yeah, cool. Anybody final words?
I guess I would reiterate that I think the best solutions come from those who are specialists in the field, and as much as we can involve people that specialise in an area in government, the better.
I agree that a commissioner has been very powerful in a whole lot of other settings, and I think that we should be looking at that, and we should be having the conversations in the community to get to a shared position. And I also think that a lot of these changes will happen most when there are gay, lesbian, transgender, intersex people in the Parliament, and that's one of the reasons I want to stand, to be able to be an out lesbian in the Parliament, pushing for things in my community in the same way that other Greens have done.
Great. You've been watching Meet Your Candidates 2014 here at Hares and Hyenas, thanks to starobserver.com.au, pridetv.com.au and the Victorian Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby. You've heard some of the scenarios of how we can engage better with government. We'd love to hear your reasons. Shoot us an email, info@vglrl.org.au.